This is a summary of our separate presentations with Dr. Cuevas and Dr. Diaz. Dr. Cuevas and myself are from UP Los Baños, and Dr. Diaz is from UP Diliman. Okay, this is of course, the goal of our presentation, as well as this forum or this session, is on solving or trying to solve the plastic pollution, which is worldwide. Well, this has been mentioned, but just to emphasize, plastics, or thermoplastics for short, are able to change their form when they are heated. As you know, in Tagalog we say, plastic mo naman, because you're like chemical plastic, you can easily change your form. The common plastics, as we know, have the letter P in front. That means poly or many. So we have polyethylene, PP, polypropylene, S, styrene, vinyl chloride, tetrafluoroethylene, etc. So you can learn a little of chemistry from the letters. Okay, a little bit of chemistry, I hope you don't mind. So if you look at the chemical formula, that is CH2CH2. Of course, if you know, you remember chemistry, as a single molecule, there's a double bond. That's ethylene. Of course, you can guess what this is. It's vinyl chloride. So the letter after the first P is the monomer. So this is propylene. This is what? Styrene, polyethylene terephthalate. That's a bit more difficult. Urethane. So you have learned a little bit of chem. Okay, more than 90% of commercial plastics are derived from fossil fuels, like petroleum and natural gas. Okay, these are called fossil-based plastics. The other type is called bio-based, meaning they are based on biomass. Of course, we call biomass derived from plants. This is something that is very important. Ethylene can be made from petroleum or from ethanol, and ethanol can be made from sugar, which is biomass. So you can have two types of ethylene from biomass or from petroleum. So polyethylene is either fossil-based or bio-based. So when somebody tells you it's a bioplastic, bio-PE, doesn't mean it's biodegradable. It's not. So bio-based plastics, some people think that they can fool you, so please don't be fooled. Doesn't mean that if it's bio-based or derived from biomass, it's biodegradable. It's not. As I mentioned, bio-PE is not biodegradable. It's more of chemistry, which I hope you will appreciate. Ethylene can be derived from ethanol, and ethanol can be, well, ethanol is in beer, in wine, in, hard liquor. So that's based from sugar. And ethylene can also be made from petroleum by cracking or reducing the molecular size. But ethylene can be made into polyethylene. This is what I mean by it can be bio-based or fossil-based. So the topic of our session is biodegradability of plastics. You see, the bottom line in pollution is to make sure that the chemical is ultimately biodegradable. What does that mean? That means that the final product after degradation in the environment should be water, carbon dioxide, and methane. If it's anaerobic, there's no oxygen. And of course, the agent of biodegradation, which is the microorganism. Now, of course, we don't like carbon dioxide and methane because these are responsible for global warming and pollution of the air, atmosphere. So we want plastic to be ultimately degraded into this elementary chemicals. Okay, this is a little bit of biochemical mechanism. How do we degrade plastics or polymers? First, they are cut down into the monomers or the individual molecules. Like polyethylene can be degraded ultimately, although it takes probably thousands of years if you leave it alone, into ethylene. That's why polyethylene can be degraded into ethylene, but it's very, very difficult. And what is responsible for that? These are enzymes which are called depolymerases, meaning they cause depolymerization, meaning break down the polymer into monomers. Okay, after breakdown of the polymer, so you get oligo, meaning few mers or few small units. Can have also 2 units or mono units. They are further degraded into carbon dioxide and water, or in the case of anaerobic or no oxygen present, into methane, hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide, and water. Okay, this is what happens or what's supposed to happen when you want to degrade plastics. Okay, again, I hope you don't mind my repetition, but it's very important. When you hear the word or the phrase bioplastic, it can either mean the origin from biomass or it means biodegradable. It's a bit confusing, but I'm sure you can understand. Okay, this is also very interesting but can be complicated. When you hear the phrase or the word bioplastics, it can mean either biodegradable or bio-based, meaning derived from biomass, like starch or cellulose. There are some bioplastics which are biodegradable and some which are not. So you can see this ellipses. So the common or the inner subset are those which are biodegradable and are bioplastics, like polylactic acid, starch, polyhydroxy benzoate or benzene anyway, PHB. But the others are not biodegradable. For example, polyethylene, as I said, and some of these other plastics. So it can be a bit confusing. Okay, now another important thing is, how do you determine whether a plastic is harmful to the environment? The final test or the crucial test is compostability. Of course, you know what is composting. You want to buy organic foods, which use natural fertilizers or compost. Many people do not want to use chemical fertilizers like urea or ammonium sulfate. So the ultimate test of degradability of any material in the environment is whether it is compostable or not. Meaning to say, it is ultimately degradable if you leave it within reasonable time, few years perhaps, or preferably less than a year. Meaning to say, a plastic or a material can be biodegradable, but it can take 1,000 years or perhaps a few hundred years. Well, that's a bit too long, right? So it doesn't mean that when somebody talks about biodegradability, it's good because it can take 1,000 or a longer period of time, number of years. So again, let me emphasize, the question to ask a manufacturer is it compostable or not? Okay, a little confusion arises when a manufacturer of plastic says that when you add the chemical additive, like Vice President Dairit of NAST said, it's also biodegradable. Then people think, oh, it's good, it's biodegradable. But actually, also biodegradable from my readings and from reputable sources, they are concerned only with biofragmentation. So studies done in the US and in Czech Republic found that when they add in standard tests microorganism to test the effectivity of these chemical additives or chemically treated non-biodegradable plastics, these are not biodegradable. They are only oxo-biodegradable, meaning they are fragmented, but they do not eventually are degraded into carbon dioxide, water, and the other elemental materials. Why are some plastics so slow in biodegradation? Like polyamides like nylon takes 83,000 years. Others like polyanhydrides take only half an hour. Well, it's in the chemical reaction and in the structure of the material. Like nylon, which is a polyamide, is a very durable, very strong material. Because like cellulose, the fibers are very dense and difficult to be reacted even by enzymes or even by acid for that matter. But others are more reactive like anhydrides. You see, you add water, it becomes the acid, organic acid. A bit of information on some bioplastics like starch-based, lactic acid-based, lignin, cellulose-based. Anyway, just to give you an idea, the fossil-based biodegradable polymers in red are very, very small proportion of the total number of degradable plastics. The rest, like polyethylene terephthalate, these are the most abundant. These are the plastics used in plastic water bottles, single-use plastics. Okay, this is what I mentioned, that the oxo-biodegradable plastics, they promote abiotic degradation, including fragmentation, but not ultimate chemical degradation. Okay, this just a repetition of the controversy about oxo-degradable plastics. And as I said, scientifically, these are not biodegradable. That's why a study in 2018 even said that these oxo-biodegradable plastics should be restricted in use, in distribution and use to the public. Okay, this is what I mentioned in the US, in the University of Michigan. There was a study, 3-year study, which showed that the chemical additives did not significantly increase biodegradation of the plastics to which were added these chemical additives. In the Czech Republic, a 3-month study also showed that the additives did not enhance biodegradability. I'll mention this in relation to the studies done in UP Diliman by the group of Dr. Leslie Joy Diaz on the bioplastics which they're working on as biodegradable plastics. So cellulose, as you know, paper is more than 95% cellulose paper. Like cotton also is more than almost pure cellulose. So you have glucose linked beta-1,4, which are in very long chains. Another material they studied is chitin, which is poly-beta-1,4 and acetylglucosamine. So it's similar to cellulose, except that you have this group, an N-acetylglucosamine, instead of hydroxyl group, OH, in the polymer. Okay, this very, very tasty thing here, creature here. Aside from the nice flesh, you can also use the chitin, which is the polyacetylglucosamine. Chitin can be made into plastics. Of course, you have also protein and calcium carbonate. Okay, at the laboratory in the UP Department of Mining, Metallurgical and Materials Engineering, Dr. Diaz did some research on biodegradable plastic materials from locally non-food resources like the crab carapace or shell, as well as from cellulosic materials. Next, please. So these are some researches done by the group of Dr. Diaz on the synthesis or production of biopolymers at UP Diliman based on recycled material like cellulose and chitin, different designs and structures. Work done at UP Los Baños, on the other hand, by microbiologist academician Cuevas, involved isolation of bacterial isolates, including also fungal isolates, in the degradation of polyethylene, as well as polyurethane. Next, please. This polyethylene, after storage, or rather exposure to forest environment, you can see holes here, which shows degradation. But this is 4 months. That's only partial degradation. So if you imagine how long will it take to completely biodegrade this, I'm sure it will take more than a year or maybe several years. So that I said polyethylene is very, very durable in terms of chemical degradation. Okay, the group of Dr. Cuevas also look at polyurethane. This is what you have in foam, polyurethane, making bed material. Okay, the group of Dr. Cuevas was able to use this microbial isolate to cause liquefaction of the polyurethane, the foam plastic material. So after some time, the almost solid material became very fine materials. Okay, here are some recommendations that we have made. Government incentives should be given to processors and manufacturers of biodegradable plastic products. Importation and sale of non-biodegradable, especially single-use plastic products, should be restricted and heavily taxed. Funding and logistical support should be provided for research and development on the following: physicochemical and biological evaluation of commercial additives for enhanced biodegradation of plastics, and techno-economic feasibility studies on production of biodegradable plastics should be supported using local feedstocks. Okay, for accelerating development of biodegradable plastics, Dr. Diaz has made these recommendations: develop downstream processing of agricultural and aquacultural products and byproducts, development of manufacturing technologies including smart machineries for efficient and competitive mass production, and strengthen business culture with research motivation for Filipino entrepreneurs. This is by Dr. Cuevas. There is a need for a multidisciplinary approach. Microbiologists, environmental engineers, biochemists, they should work together in order to develop a technology for an environmentally friendly plastic waste disposal system. And she also zeroed in on the procurement law, Republic Act 9184, which must be derived first. I can see the support of our research personnel. That's very, very important. It's hampering our research efforts tremendously. So this law is not a deterrent for corruption, meaning it does not solve the corruption problem. Next. Thank you for your attention.